Hey, howdy, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Catchin and Fam podcast on YouTube. Thank you for clicking the link. Today, as you see, I'm interviewing somebody very interesting, I would say. I'm excited. I don't know much about this. I stumbled across the Society of Creative Anachronism. So my first hearing was, for some reason, Sons of Anarchy or Arachnophobia or the Anarchist Cookbook. So it's none of that. Okay, so it's actually really interesting. And if you're looking for something to be a part of, something unique and different, and also keeping history alive, then this interview is for you. So just give me a moment and we'll be back with Katie Gilroy from the Society of Creative Anachronism. Talk to you soon. Hey, you. Yeah, you over there. Do you have an idea, a podcast idea, something that would go great on this show that somebody should know about, that you or somebody that you know could tell us about? Send us an email at catchinupwithcarter@gmail.com. That's Catchin with no G in the middle. catchinupwithcarter@gmail.com. We want to know your ideas and we want to talk about them. Toodaloo. All right, welcome back to the Catchin with Carter and Fam Show on YouTube right now, and we'll be on more podcast platforms coming to a internet station near you. I have Katie on the phone. Welcome, Katie. How are you? And welcome.
Hi, Carter. I am doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Where are you coming? Where are you from right now?
So I'm from Dallas, Texas. So I'm down south.
Oh, real south and real warm right now.
We just had a cold front come through, so it's Texas cold. I'm sure everybody else would say it's a very nice day, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's Texas cold to you?
I was in the 40s this morning. So
That's
kind of cold.
Yeah,
that warmed up throughout the day, though.
That was a high for us the other day, and now it's back down a little bit. So, welcome, and we're excited to hear about the Society of Creative Anachronism. I will be honest, I had to Google that right away because I had no idea. It sounded super cool, and it is still super cool. But tell me the history of it, and basically what is the Society of Creative Anachronism?
All right, yeah. So I'm the social media officer right now for the Society for Creative Anachronism, or just SCA for short. It's kind of a mouthful. So if I say SCA, that's what this is. And we are a not-for-profit that is focused on the research and recreation and education of pre-17th century cultures. And that's from all around the world. So whether you're interested in the First Nations in America or European medieval history or Africa, we cover the whole world. And it's a hobby full of hobbies. So we have combat, we have arts and sciences. You know, a lot of people consider their friends that they've made in the SCA to be their found family. And it happens all over the world. So we even have groups in Australia and New Zealand. And there's pretty much an event every weekend or every other weekend. So if you wanted to go somewhere every weekend, you definitely could.
That sounds really fun. I mean, I just interviewed a gentleman not long ago, Chris Sanner, and he does medieval MMA, which I guess is not a too far cry out from what you guys do in a way, right? But and I guess there's a whole world of you guys, Renaissance people, SCA, and then the MMA, the medieval MMA. I feel like there's a whole world I've been missing for a while. That sounds like a lot of fun. How did you get involved in it, Katie?
I joined for the combat, and like you said, there's quite a few combat groups, and some of them cross over. So you have HEMA, which is a different type of group, and they are like super historically focused. They study the manuals and stuff. And then on the flip side, you have stuff like Amtgard and Dagahir, which are two other LARPs, and they're very fantasy focused. So the SCA is nice and in the middle. You don't have to be perfectly historically accurate. We just don't have, wizards and dragons running around. We try and do things as best as we can, close to history. So how I found it was I did Taekwondo in college and graduated. And I was like, well, if I want to do combat sports, I should probably do them now, well, because I'm young and I'll heal. And I had a combat lightsaber from Star Wars. And I was like, I am 100% sure that somewhere there are people fighting with these lightsabers. So I was looking for a group to do that, and someone commented on like a question I had asked on Facebook, and they were like, well, we sword fight, so you can come try that if you want. It's basically a lightsaber. And I was like, yeah, I'll go do that. So I went to their house, having never met them, didn't know who they were. Like, they could have been terrible people for all I knew. And I was like texting my coworker, if you don't hear from me in 20 minutes, like, I've probably been murdered by these people. Went into their house, and they had a baby. I was like, well, this is fine, because everybody knows that nobody with a baby has ever murdered anyone, obviously.
Right.
I guess listeners can't see my face right now, but they didn't murder me, and they were very nice. And they showed me all these different swords, and so the husband is one of the top fighters kind of in the SCA as a whole, and his name in the SCA is Sven, and then his wife is called Antigone, and she's the one who actually found me and brought me in. So one of the fun things about the SCA, you get to pick a medieval name. So like, my name regularly is Katie. In the SCA, I go by Marjorie.
I saw that. I was going to ask him, because I was like, well, she's got to have something on the SCA, because I watched a couple of things in general, just to Google it and try to learn a little bit so I don't sound too stupid. And I saw that. You have quite a few fights on there.
Yes, I record all my fights, and that's something we can get into later. But basically, like, they showed me, what fighting is, showed me all their armor, because both of them are fighters as well, which is uncommon. You don't see a lot of couples where both of them are fighters, especially both armored fighters. We also have rapier combat, we have archery. So usually it'll be like each person will do different things, but they are both armored fighters. And then they told me what the SCA was about, and that it was like this whole world of recreation, and it wasn't just the fighting. And I was like, all right, that's way cooler than lightsaber fighting. I'm gonna do that. And then they kept feeding me dinner, and now they're stuck with me forever. So, but yes, I do a lot of the fighting. So I record all my fights, because like I mentioned earlier, I came from a Taekwondo background and a competitive sports background. So I like to go over my fights with Sven, who I still talk to, and I have a coach who in the SCA is called Floki. And he's got kids, like you do, so he can't make it out to everything. It's unrealistic to expect that. So I record my fights, put them online, send them to him. And then we play this game called Shame Katie, where he'll rewind all the really stupid things that I do over and over. And I get so embarrassed about it. I just never do that stupid thing ever again in a fight. And that's how I get better.
That sounds like so much fun that you, have been welcomed into that. And I don't know why I haven't heard of it sooner. Because, of course, any type of fighting is cool. I think it's really neat. There's a castle not far from me that was built to recreate a mimic one in England, and it was built in 1920 something, I think. It's over in Oregon, Illinois, and they have an event there, and they have some fighting and stuff there. I don't know if that's SCA that comes there or not, but it's filled with fighting. But then there's they're making clothing and food, and it's a really neat event. I liked the whole thing. It was cool.
Yeah, we've got a couple forts around here. So down in Texas, we've got one down near Livingston, which is kind of near Houston, and they've got a fort. So we fight in that fort, and we have a big event down there. And then the other one that I go to consistently every year is called Gulf Wars. And they've got a fort, and so we'll run a bunch of different battle scenarios. Gulf Wars is the second largest event in the SCA, I am pretty sure, right after Penzic Wars, which I can touch on later. But they've got a fort down there that we fight in, and we'll put up, a fake town and mimic an army trying to capture a town. So, if you want one-on-one tournament fighting with that, we have battles, and that'll involve, whole siege engines and crossbows and trebuchets and shield walls and all that, where you can do one-on-one. And then the largest event that the SCA has is called the Penzic Wars. That actually happens in Pittsburgh. And the 50th anniversary of that event is coming up this summer. It got delayed by COVID, but they are back and they are ready. And this year is going to be Penzic 50, so it should be a huge one. It's up at Cooper's Lake Campground in Pennsylvania.
How does one get into it though? Like, how does somebody become a member? Like if I wanted to say, okay, well, I want to start getting involved, what's the first step or first process of somebody becoming a member?
Sure. So the first step is to find your local group. So the SCA is divided into 20 kingdoms, and then those kingdoms are divided into local groups, which will usually be like a city or two, and kingdoms can be a state or two. So Texas is just Texas and Oklahoma is our kingdom, but if you go like in the Northeast where the states are much smaller, they'll have a couple more in there. So if you visit SCA.org, we actually have a tab called New to the SCA and a tab called Find Your Kingdom. So you can go on there, find where you live, and most kingdoms will have a list of their groups and the cities that they cover, or some even have just a total zip code lookup. You put your zip code in and it'll be like, this is the closest group to you. I advise people, if they want to get started, just don't buy anything. Spend no money. Meet with your local group first. Because this hobby can get really expensive really fast if you're not careful. And a lot of people, you know, they see that you can be a knight in shining armor and they immediately go out and buy all this armor, and then it doesn't meet our safety minimums. So I like to say, don't buy anything, save your money, you know, meet some local people from your local group after you've gone on SCA.org and found your kingdom and stuff. And a lot of people will have hand-me-downs. So like you can start getting yourself built up in the SCA, get your armor, get your garb, or whatever you want to do for way cheaper than if you just go off and do it yourself. So like, for example, I open up my garage and do armoring days with our newcomers. And so I'm like, just show up, you know, bring yourself. If you put in the work, you can have your armor for free. And we'll build them just beginner kits out of plastic. Because we do have safety rules. So, you know, you want to be careful about spending money. And then once you've met everybody and you've either fought or you've sewed a little bit or you kind of understand what you're looking at, then you start, buying things and putting a kit together. But pretty much every group should have loaner gear. They should have loaner garb. So you can start right away without buying anything. You really don't even have to be a member to participate. There's a member surcharge on our events just for the insurance if you're not a member, but you can go without paying for membership.
So a spectator can go too then?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I mean, I encourage everybody to go. I think it's super fun. You can get really into character if you want. A lot of us, though, are just ourselves. And, these are our friends who we hang out with outside of this, too. So it's like a big party each weekend.
So you actually camp out then and stay there and do all that stuff every single time you guys do it, pretty much?
Yeah, some events will span multiple days. So the Penzic Wars that I referenced earlier is 2 weeks. Gulf Wars is 1 week. You'll have some events that are over the course of a weekend. So they'll be both Saturday and Sunday. Some events are just 1 day. And then by the time you get all the way down to like very local stuff, practices will just be like an evening. So for example, after this tonight, I'm running over to my local practice. It's about 15 minutes away. I'm going to hang out with them just because it's my friends and I wanted to see them. So it can span anywhere from 1 night to 2 weeks.
So it sounds like you really found your own niche after college by doing this. This is where your home is, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was awesome, especially moving back from college, finding a group of people so quickly. And I joke that my knight or my coach literally found me on the side of the road because he's had to come rescue me off the side of the road at least 3 times. And he's had to get my boyfriend like another time. But that's just the kind of people you see in the SCA. Like if you break down, someone will be there in 20 minutes to come get you. Like I could break down in Pennsylvania where nobody knows me and just on the basis of like, I'm in the SCA and I need help. Like 15 people would try to help. You'd have to tell people to stop helping.
I see that. When I did my little bit of research, I see that a lot of people are welcoming and helping each other in that. And that's what's appealing to it too, is that it seems fun and people don't judge you on who you are and they actually help you, get into it. Because that's ultimately what you want, is more people to do it, to keep it live and getting better anyway, So I think that's so key to be welcoming in a new sport like that. And it sounds so fun. It really does. I haven't gone like dressed up to a Renaissance fair, but I'm down 100%.
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of people from Ren fairs. We get a lot of people. I joined because I loved, Game of Thrones and all that stuff. I literally took my SCA name from my favorite Game of Thrones character. And so like I do focus a lot on the fighting. I joke with art that if I can't control Z, like I have no idea what I'm doing. But we also have tons of options for the artists. So like one of my good buddies is a blacksmith. We have a lot of people who are really into ceramics. We have cooks who will recreate like feasts from in that period, like with, you know, those specific ingredients. And we'll have, my local group just had a feast for like 300 people. So there's really something for everyone. If you're like, I'm not an athlete, this sounds like it's not for me, we have tons of other stuff. We've got Scribble. If you're just like a helper and you've got helium hand where you can't keep it down, like there's plenty to do.
Yeah, that sounds so cool. How many people are a part of it in your group, for one, and then two, how many people are part of it as a whole?
In total, we've got 10,000 or more people. That number kind of dipped during COVID, right? Because it's hard to have a membership for a group that can't meet because of the pandemic. But we're coming back now that it's over. My personal group, at our fighter practices, we get about 30 people each week, so that's weekly. In total, we might have like 100 members. Again, if they're not fighters, they may not come to fighter practice, but that's like our big weekly hangout. And there are groups, you know, you really only have to have like 10 people to make a group. My group is just in Dallas, which is a big city, so we have a big pool to choose from. But that's like, you know, we've got groups in Ada, Oklahoma, which is like, when are you ever going to find that on a map? So even small towns, like you'll be surprised how many people want to play with swords and, you know, just live that life of chivalry and the knights in shining armor and princesses. We joke, there's this old joke that's like, in the SCA, even a garbage man can be a king. So my buddy Sven, who helped recruit me, he's literally a plumber, and he has also been the king of my kingdom on Steora 3 times. So yeah, you can literally, you know, be a plumber and be a king.
Yeah, when you say all that, because I noticed, you know, I saw a lot of cool battles, and, you know, when I see the medieval MMA thing is, there was some group fighting, I'm not going to say there isn't, but not like y'all. I mean, that's like a ton of it. That looks like 1,000 people probably. Maybe I'm wrong, but some of them pictures I've been looking on Google are huge.
Yeah, it depends if we're like, the ground will literally rumble when they call lay on for the 2 armies to go at each other. Like, they can get pretty big, and you can also get, you know, local events where you do 5-on-5 skirmishes. So it's really just whatever scenario you want to create, you just make it. And I'm sure there will be people who want to show up and play that scenario. So usually the main ones I see, if you've got a fort, you'll have a battle to try and either take the fort or defend the fort. We'll do a bridge battle, which is kind of like a fighting tug of war to control the bridge. So you want to push the other group back across the bridge, and they want to push you the other way across the bridge. We'll do an open field battle, which is, you know, what you'd think of, just 2 giant armies running at each other in the field. And there's commanders and stuff trying to make sense of the chaos, but it's like everybody says, you know, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Like, everyone's got a plan until a man the size of an industrial refrigerator is running at you. We don't divide up by gender or by weight class or anything. Like, if you're a fighter, you're a fighter.
So when you are going at it, this is like full on, you're 100% going fighting all the way?
I mean, everybody has to show some amount of self-control, just because we don't want to hurt our friends. So there's like a certain calibration in the armored fighting that you have to hit. Like, we are all assumed the calibration is supposed to be that you are wearing a chainmail like shirt and boiled leather armor on your arms and legs, and then a Norman conical nasal helm, which is kind of just like the little skull cap with the piece that comes down and protects your nose. So theoretically, it should be a hard enough hit to get through those with a sword in the armored fighting. In rapier fighting, if you've ever seen a real rapier, on, I'm trying to think of any blacksmithing shows, Forge and Fire, for example, like those things are sharp. And the rapier, we obviously use blunted ones, but we're trying to replicate as if it was real. So that's really just like if they touch you, that's a callable blow, versus in the armored combat, you have to really hit somebody. But we also are all aware of what we're trying to do. So the SCA doesn't really have wrestling as much. It's very much a striking game, which in my opinion makes it a lot easier for women to participate on equal footing, for not getting, thrown around by men twice our size. Having it just striking is nice for me, because it's way easier for me to compete if I don't have to like wrestle people in addition to being as strong and fast as all these full-grown men. So I used to play soccer, and I used to do Taekwondo, and I saw more injuries in soccer than I did in Taekwondo. And I saw more injuries in Taekwondo than I do in the SCA. Yeah, people get bruises, and it's a fighting sport. There's going to be injuries, but I think overall, people are pretty careful not to hurt each other. We have armor inspections before all of our fights, so somebody who's trained to know what to look for and trained to know the minimums of the armor will check out your fencing kit or check out your fighting kit. And they'll be like, oh no, like, for example, this doesn't cover your neck well enough. If you get hit in the neck, like, it's gonna bust your trachea. And, that doesn't have to be the end of the day. Most people will bring extra armor and will get you settled. But we all try and be safe.
How much water do you drink over a summer Texas event weekend?
For a one-day event, I personally will bring an entire case of water, like, per day in Texas. For me. So, like, in our friend group, every single person brings themselves a case of water. And then I also bring a lot of electrolytes. So that's something else that I recommend to people. If you're going into this, take water with you to your first practice. I bring electrolytes here because wearing all that armor, you sweat a ton. Like, you just need to keep... That's something else we stress, and we started stressing really recently. A lot of the people who founded the SCA are getting older and realizing what happens when you don't take care of your body. So the fighters now are putting a really big emphasis on, like, make sure you're drinking your water, make sure you have electrolytes. Like, if you start looking a little dehydrated, you've got like 15 people with Pedialyte trying to make sure you're drinking. And we've also started trying to find more indoor spaces if we can. Just 'cause, like, yeah, we could fight outside, and like, yeah, the aesthetic might be more medieval outside, but when it comes down to it, we'd rather have safety than aesthetic. So my local group practices inside, which is great living in Tornado Alley, because we get massive thunderstorms. So whether it's too hot or too cold or raining, we still get to always have practice. A lot of groups practice outside, but I've seen a lot more places looking for an indoor space just to get that consistency and escape that weather.
So if you're a real competitive person going into this, what is the like toughest battle or toughest event for the SCA that they host worldwide, do you think?
Worldwide, I think probably this one called Sport of Kings. I have never been, but it's, people will travel from all over. So I know there's some fighters here that I'm close to that travel up for it, and winning it is a pretty big deal. Within each kingdom, like self-contained, the hardest one is supposed to be the crown tournament, which is the tournament to become king and queen. So if you win that specific tournament, you are the prince and princess of your kingdom for a little bit, and then you will have a coronation where you step up as king and queen, or, if you're a woman, queen and queen, king and king, whatever, however you identify. But since that's like the tournament to lead, usually that's the one that within a kingdom requires the highest level of skill, I would say.
So was that your goal then? Have you become queen before, and is that on your goal this year?
It is on my list. Only 2 women, I think, have become queen by their own hand so far, like in the SCA. And that's not to say a woman can't do it, or she has to be some like special snowflake. It's just opportunities. I mean, to get that good at anything requires a certain amount of insanity. And I have a whole spiel because I am in the minority of fighters who do heavy fighting because I'm a woman. You see a lot more women on the fencing side or on the archery side because it's not quite so aggressive. I think any woman is capable of doing it, but it does require a lot of practice. And yeah, I would love to win. I have 2 guys who I would like to win for. So once you win once, you step down, you're not king or queen for a little bit. You can enter the tournament again. So one of my good friends is a rapier fighter. So I want to win for him. And then for my boyfriend, of course.
If you were to think of some people that, well, you mentioned 2 of them, you can mention them again, but people that really have impacted your, I guess, your view on the SCA and really who's welcomed you the most, I guess, and really taught you the most.
Oh man, this might be the whole rest of the podcast. It's just me listing off inspiring people. Recruited me, and that's Sen and Antigone and a lot of their immediate groups. So Floki is my knight. I'm his squire. So we have knights and squires here. And his wife welcomed me in. They fed me too, so now they're stuck with me forever. And even their 2 little kids and their cats were like super welcoming to me. Yeah. And then the fighter community as a whole, I've recently started training a lot harder. And it's crazy how much like more people notice you, like when you really put yourself out there. So I've had the chance to make a lot of really, really good and close friends. One of the first people I met, the first nights I ever met, his name's Jason, and he's a duke. So he's reigned 3 times, and on Seor as well, he's been king. And he's also a top tier fighter. And like just recently, it occurred to me that he and I are about the same height. So my favorite thing to do, because he's crazy good, he's so fast, I'm convinced he just teleports, is ask him what he did to hit me, and then go back to practice and do that to people who have about the same skill gap to me as I do to him, and then send him videos of it because it makes him laugh, and I think it's funny. I think it's great, to take things from good fighters, especially because he's my height and I am so much shorter than the average fighter. So Duke Jason has been super helpful. I'm actually in the process of building a shield that looks like his right now, so I can try to mimic his fighting style better. And then locally, one of my good friends is called Torin 7 Stitches, and she is actually the queen of my kingdom right now. She's stepping down on Saturday, so somebody else can take the throne. But she's been crazy helpful. Like, she gave me a bunch of garb. She's very sweet to me. She keeps cooking for me, so I'm about to have to make my armor bigger. But she and her boyfriend Crepin have been nothing but nice to me. One time my knight was going through some family stuff, so he didn't really have time to train me. So Crepin stepped up and just started training me, like out of the kindness of his own heart. He had no duty to me. He just did it for fun. Yeah, and then, I've got friends all the way in Australia. I think her SCA name is Am, but she has really held my hand a lot through this society officer thing that I've been doing. So we've got officers all the way, like, you can be an officer for your specific city, your local group, all the way up to society, where it's kind of an international deal. I've served at every level, but society is a whole different beast. So she has definitely helped me out a lot.
See, this is such a cool thing. I love it. I'm interested in it. I don't know about fighting in it. Myself is falling apart. Maybe that's something I could set as a goal. But if you were to like sell this as an ad right now, just these people right now that are listening, why should somebody join, and who does it apply to? Because we're going to wrap this up in a second. So who does this apply to, and why should they join the SCA?
Yeah, so I think you should join the SCA if you want to wear some funny clothes and have a good time. So it doesn't actually matter what you're interested in, because there's going to be something here for you. But if you just want to learn and you want to make friends in a really easy way, this is the place for you. And I think you should join because a lot of adults don't really, if they get a degree, that's one of the last things anybody really has to push themselves for. And after that, you just go to your job and go home and call it a day. The SCA has really allowed me to keep pushing and keep focusing on myself and like have something to strive for. My brother was saying like he was shocked that I wasn't just just sitting, in my office playing computer all day after I graduated, that I was actually out doing stuff. And that's what the SCA does. Like, it makes you want to get out there. I know countless people who it has helped them with depression, anxiety. It's not a cure-all, obviously, but just having a group of people who are open to helping you with those things and who are understanding. I joke a little bit that it's like the island of misfit toys. Like, whatever problems you've had, if you weren't the popular kid, this is the place for you. If you were the popular kid and you were on the football team, this is the place for you, and we'll give you a sword. Like,
there you have it. You said that so perfect. I'm glad you're in the position you are for this. So how does somebody follow you, right? I know you're on YouTube, and you said it's Lady Marjorie, correct?
Yeah, I mean, my YouTube is kind of boring. It's just my fights. But if you want to follow the SCA, SCA.org is our just our regular website. You should be able to find everything else on there. If you want us on Facebook, that's Society for Creative Anachronism, which is a mouthful. I'm sorry. That's just what it is. On Instagram, we are at SCA Social. And we should have a YouTube that was, our YouTube is also just SCA-Society for Creative Anachronism. And then if people are wanting to just see like fighting and see what it's like, if you just search like SCA rapier fighting or SCA heavy fighting, like you can find videos of the fighting on there.
Well, there you have it. And I'm going to tag you guys and stuff too for this podcast anyway on YouTube, and then also or on Instagram and Facebook and some other things anyway. I really appreciate your time, Katie. Again, this is Katie Gilroy from the Society of Creative Anachronism. And if you missed part of this, it's there's fighting, there's all kinds. You can dress up in attire. You can have an old meal from the 17th century, and it just sounds like a swell time, like a really interesting time. And I like that you touched base on the mental health and depression, because that is such a big thing nowadays, and awareness of it is getting better, thank God. And everybody's looking for a way to find life again and be happy. And if this is something you can do, this is amazing. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And it was great talking to you today.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, that wraps up another interesting podcast, Catching Up with Carter and Fam. Be sure to follow us on Instagram. Follow our dog, too, Radar the Pit Mix. Follow Rochelle Train Graffiti. Follow Life with Jack, of course, my amazing stepson/son to me. An amazing kid. All the kids are doing great, by the way. Show us some love, please. Subscribe, share, like. And if you have a topic or something you want to talk about, or somebody else that should talk about something, please hit my email, please. catchingupwithcarter@gmail.com. That's catching with no G in the middle. And the same thing, we do Airbnb reviews. We have one that we finally got done. We will be posting it soon, and that's our 10th Airbnb at an A-frame in Wisconsin. It was a beautiful place. We got to go back. Anyway, if you have a place and you want us to review it for you, hit our line also, catchingupwithcarter@gmail.com. Thank you so much. And until next time, please take care and stay safe.
Thank you for spending an hour of your time with us. Now will you do yourself a favor? Check us out on Catching Up with Carter and Fam Show. Do yourself another favor and follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Insta. Our dog's also up there, so you'll be doing yourself a third favor. And we'll see you next week. Toodles.